Hey, welcome back to the Straight No Chaser podcast. And I'm your host, Bishop. And today's show, y'all, we all about that money, 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 money. Today's show, we're going to talk about why your paycheck isn't stretching, right? Like how we get here. Wages, inflation, and the cost of living. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about today. And y'all, we're going to dig in pretty deep. And this is going to be a hard discussion for a lot of people to have, right? Because when you start talking about money, it gets really funny. And when your money's funny, you ain't laughing. You want stuff to get right. And so we're going to talk about like how we got here and what life would look like if your wages actually kept up with inflation. If your wages were aligned with inflation, what would it look like for most American families? What would it look like for your family, right? You know? And the biggest question I have when we start this episode today, right? Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you work, you just don't have enough money? Like there's nothing you could do that's within your own power to bring more money because there always seems to be more costs. Things go up and up and up, or you just never have enough, right? You just never have enough. Let me tell you, you're not imagining it. You're not imagining it. What you're seeing is your wages, right, don't align with the reality of life right now. That's what you're seeing. And the biggest question that I think all of us have is why haven't wages kept up with inflation? Because there is a reason why. None of what you see now is by accident. Everything is orchestrated and planned for a reason, right? That's why it's important for us to know why wages haven't kept up with inflation and what it would look like if they had, so that we can then go start doing the things that we need to do to get the money that we deserve as the American workforce. So many of us have given over our power away to the CEOs and the big wig people in these organizations, but you forget it is everyday normal people who do this work. And somewhere along the way, we gave away our our power. We gave that away. We gave that away. And I don't know why. We gotta start to tap into who we are. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. We're going to talk about wages on a historical level, fair wages, what fair wages would look like today, and ultimately what that impact would be on American families if we actually got the money that we really need for our families. Because for many of us, what we're currently being paid is not it. It just ain't it. And it certainly just isn't it for a CEO of the company that you work for to be making 400 times more than every employee that works there. I don't understand how that's good business. I get that, CEOs have jobs to be strategic and to grow the company and do all those things. But growth doesn't matter if you don't have the resources to reproduce the product or services that your CEO is selling. That your CEO is out there trying to grow and make better. That workforce is a part of why that product or service exists. Somewhere along the way, our contributions, what we had to say, what we felt, what we wanted, became less important. So we're going to get into the money. Money, 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 money. So we're going to start with a couple of facts, right? First, we're going to talk about this history of stagnation in wages, right? Because like I told you, none of this happened by an accident. Everything is the direct result of decisions that were made or decisions that were not made that led us to the moment that we're at right now. So in the 1970s, right, American workers, we were producing or manufacturing a lot more, right, in America. And Americans were extremely productive. Since the late 70s, Americans have just been producing more, meaning the American worker, the individual, they're just more productive than they were eons ago. Why? There are a multitude of reasons why they're more productive. And I would say they're more productive because of a combination of better skill sets, automation, certainly being a part of manufacturing. There are a lot of things that contribute to an increased productivity by individuals in the workforce, right? And productivity has gone up over 60% with the American workforce. So, in addition to the workers becoming more efficient, more productive, their wages haven't kept up with the fact that they've had an increase in production. Looks like companies, they're taking advantage of the fact that you're working more and you're getting more done, but it hasn't really netted more money in your pocket, not in the way that you may have thought all this time. They say, but the wages for the bottom 90% earners have only gone up 29%. So let's go back. There's been a 60% increase in productivity, right? But the wages for the bottom 90% of earners have only gone up 29%, I'm sorry. So I have to ask, so where's the money going? I can tell you where the money's going. The money's going to the top. The money's going to the top. And those same people at the top will tell you you don't work hard enough. You're not making enough sacrifices. Seems to me by looking at the numbers here, if wages only went up 29%, but productivity's gone up over 60%, the people winning, the entities winning are entities, companies, businesses, CEOs, boards. Those are who's winning. They're making sure the American worker isn't winning. Only gone up by 29%. That means if you're working harder, faster, and more efficiently, you're not getting paid more. Yep. You're working harder, smarter, faster, more efficiently, but you're not being paid more. And in some instances, you're being paid less. You know? But the executive and CEO pay, right, for these same corporations have skyrocketed to over 1,400%. 1,400%. So the wages for the 90%, what did I tell you guys about this 99.9% percentile versus that 0.1%? So for the 90 percentile, their wages went up 29%, even though they're over 60% more productive than they had been. Yet CEO compensation went up 1,400%. 1,400%. That's an insane disparity. It's a wonder that the American worker is still so productive, considering they're not being paid for that increased productivity. But they should, but they're not. The federal minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 an hour since 2009. It is 2025, and we've had no raise in the federal minimum wage, but yet CEO salaries continue to skyrocket and go up and up and up and up. What is the benefit to the American worker? So we're talking about over 15 years, the federal government has not raised minimum wage. 15 years. And understand, for many people who say, no, you shouldn't raise federal minimum wage because that is a base salary for your intro worker and you shouldn't be giving them more. Listen, if you raise the federal minimum wage, you raise wages for every American in America. Everybody's wages go up. And everybody's wages go up because the base went up. But that's the lie that they like to sell you. You know, it's going to be too expensive. Is it really? I know it's expensive, the cost of housing. And when you don't bring in enough income, you have to work multiple jobs. When you're working multiple jobs, you can't be by your children. You can't raise them and be there for them. That's a problem. That's a problem. But 15 years and the federal minimum wage has not been raised. Now, you'll say why? It's not just one reason why they have not raised the federal minimum wage. It's a collection of reasons why, collection of things that keep that pay suppressed. You're talking about the decline of unions. Unions fight for money. Unions help to get you paid if you're in the right union. They help to get you paid. They make sure not only that the compensation is good, but the benefits package is good. Another reason why, outsourcing of jobs. In the 90s, America had made a decision that we're going to outsource low-wage jobs. That's how they said it. We're going to outsource low-wage jobs, and so that more higher-wage, high-skilled jobs can come here to America and Americans can get those jobs. Well, the problem is, yeah, we did get some high-skilled, high-wage jobs, but a lot of people still didn't qualify for those jobs because there were no government training programs in place to qualify for them, to train them for said jobs so they could get them, right? And then when you have the use of H-1B visas to bring in high-skilled immigrant labor, well, guess what? Guess what? Those high-skilled jobs never came back. Some of them did, but most of them did not. And for a lot of them that did come, a lot of Americans were not qualified for those jobs. We got to be honest. Got to be honest. Because when you're not honest, you can't change it. But when you're honest, you can. You got to be honest about why we got here and how we got here. Corporate profits are prioritized over workers every day of the week. And for most companies, they care more about their bottom line. Why? Because they care more about what their shareholders think. Everything is about the shareholder. I got to do what's right by my shareholder. This is what the board wants from us. What about your employees? You don't have all that greatness without those people working there, making those products or doing that service. But people who have money and access to things forget about that. They forget about that. Us in the working class have to remind them. Because they get too comfortable, y'all. They're too comfortable. And they're that comfortable because we've allowed it. Because we feel like we have no choices. Another reason why whether the federal minimum wage has been stagnant and it causes us to be stagnant in our money is because of the political gridlock in Washington that won't act to do anything about the federal minimum wage. We know Republicans are not going to increase the federal minimum wage. Frankly, they think like $7.25 is a lot of money per hour. I don't know for who, but not for most Americans. And then Democrats, liberals, when you're in power, you don't do a damn thing to do anything about the federal minimum wage. I'm starting to feel like you don't want to raise it either. So then what is the whole point of voting for you if you're not going to raise the federal minimum wage? $7.25 an hour in America ain't no money. And everybody knows that. That's not a livable wage. Are we saying that the federal government, that the standard that the federal government sets isn't even working wage at a base level? Hell, we've been saying it for as long as I can remember. But are we going to really say it this time? Because what's the other justification for not raising federal minimum wage, right? Why do we accept working more, while we earn less? Why do we accept that? Why do we accept what you're getting flexibility? You can come in at 10 instead of 9. Like, what do we actually get from all of this? Who's really winning, right? Because if we're working more, but still the money that we make isn't matching the reality of where we are economically, well, then nothing's changed. I'm just buying time. That's how I feel a lot of this is. But wages didn't have to look like this. We didn't have to be this way. But when you have so many people that want to make money in the most efficient way possible, and the way to make money efficiently, you want to spend the least amount as possible to reap the most reward. That's your goal. That's your goal. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you got to put all your money in, and depending on how that works out, you may come out on top, but you may not come out on top. Rich people ain't like that. They want a sure bet. Otherwise, I'm just throwing fucking money away. I want a sure bet. How do you get that sure bet? You get that sure bet. You get that sure bet by making sure that you invest in things that make sense and you keep those costs down, those overhead costs down. Nobody likes when you charge the overhead, baby. Nobody likes it. You know why? Because when you charge the overhead, it impacts their ability to make money. Okay? And so companies are always looking at ways they can eliminate costs. And they always start. Overhead is your employee workforce. That's why they always start there. And see, these companies have a lot to gain by lobbying Congress to keep the base rate for federal minimum wage extremely low. Because everybody's building off of that number. So if you keep that number low, you can seemingly keep a lot more salaries, suppressed. But the salaries that they never suppress are those CEO salaries. Not only are they going to get great money, they're going to get a golden parachute. So just in case if they get pushed out of that job early, guess what? They'll still be good. They'll still be good. But we don't have to be here. We're here due to greed. That's why we're here. That people with money want more of it. They don't have enough. They don't have enough. They don't have enough homes, enough cars, enough planes, enough yachts. They need more. And in order to get more, you and I got to work more for less. For less. That ain't right. That's not the American way. That's the lie we tell ourselves to accept where we are in our lives and to make sure we keep showing up at that crappy job, underpaid job. That's why we do it. That's why we do it. Now, what should wages really look like? What should it be? Because we haven't had the right wages the way we need to, right? The way we need to. Because see, in the early 70s, wages and productivity moved together. That's why so many of Americans, so many people still have this old school mindset. If I work hard, they're going to give me my money. At some point, they did in the early 70s. That's what it was. You work hard, you get rewarded for your hard work through promotions and money. But once, late 70s hit, post 1979, well, wages didn't keep up with inflation because they stopped rewarding productivity with money. They give you something else. Wages starting to flatten out at that point. That's when people were doing really, really good in the early 70s. And then they taught this mindset to their children. You work hard, you'll make a lot of money. Yeah, at one time in America, you could. That ain't the reality no more. It ain't so easy to make great money just because you work hard. I know a lot of people who work really hard, but they don't make exceptional money. So it's not because they're not productive. It's just because the job that they're in doesn't pay them more money. It's just that simple. Now, if minimum wage would have kept up with inflation, what would that have looked like? What would it look like? Okay, I ran some numbers, right? So if it did, we'd be looking at $10 to $11 per hour as a base salary. That's that base federal minimum wage level. I'm not even saying $10 or $11 is a lot of money. What I am saying is $10 or $11 an hour is way a hell of a lot more than $7.25 an hour for a base salary. Remember, companies going to build upon that. Most companies are going to build upon that. If it just kept up with inflation. But if it kept up with productivity, guess how much money the federal minimum wage would be? It would be $20 to $24 an hour. So one of the big questions is, what are they paying us for? Are you paying us, right, just to keep up with inflation? Or are you paying us to coincide with the amount of productivity that's being done by the American worker? Because I can tell you, up to this point, they ain't even paying you to keep up with inflation, and they haven't even been paying you enough to match your productivity. You're being underpaid. In short, you're being underpaid. You're not getting the money that you deserve. And you're not getting the money you deserve because rich people don't want to pay you that. They want to pay out the bare minimum so they can keep their profits high and their costs low. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Can you imagine if you don't already make $20, $24 an hour? Can you imagine what that would look like for you and your family if you did? Maybe if you're working multiple jobs right now, you could maybe take it down to one job, two jobs instead of three. It's crazy that you got to work 2 and 3 jobs. That's no quality of life anyway. It's nothing there anyway. But imagine if American families could make $20 to $25 an hour as a base rate. Imagine. You wouldn't be as concerned about the $10 eggs at that point because you can afford it. You can afford it. So a full-time worker right now making $7.25 an hour earns about $15,000 a year. That ain't no money in America, and everybody knows it. We know it because America's expensive. America's expensive. But imagine if you made $20 an hour. That same worker would make over $41,000 a year. What could your, oh, excuse me, I had to burp. What could your family do with $41,000 a year, especially if you're already only making 15? Imagine how the quality of your life changes. Imagine. So the question is, why haven't wages kept up with inflation or productivity? Not only are you not getting wages not keeping up with inflation, but you're also not getting wages keeping up with productivity. So you're losing money. I told y'all, you're losing money. Rich people just try to sell it as you're winning. No. I'm not winning if I'm working harder and getting less for it. I'm not winning at all. Not only am I working harder and getting less for it, I'm sacrificing my family for it. Wake up, folks. Wake up. Imagine what you could do with $41,000 versus $15,000. It could be the difference between living in poverty, not even having a home or a place to stay. Imagine being able to pay for your rent, your groceries, your child care, car maintenance, all those things. Imagine the life you could lead if at a base you was getting 41. At a base. You ain't got nowhere to go but up from there. Nowhere to go but up from there. Think about how much money you would be able to save towards purchasing things that are really important for you and your family. Saving for that wonderful once-in-a-lifetime vacation. Saving for your child to go to college or tech school. Whatever it may be, saving for home renovations. The point is, imagine what you could do if the federal minimum wage had kept up with inflation and productivity. Imagine. What could you do with an extra $15,000 to $25,000 a year? I bet you could do a lot with that money. I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could. But right now, Americans don't have that because wages didn't keep up with inflation nor productivity. Nor productivity. And I'm like, we got to do something to change that. Because again, if wages had kept up with inflation, you're talking a much different life. A much different life. And the only reason why we don't have that life is because the people who have the money and have the power don't want working class people to have that life. None of it's an accident, y'all. All of it is orchestrated and designed. You get it? All of it's orchestrated and designed. So when you think it isn't, you're wrong. What do they say? Just when you think you have it figured out, you are wrong. And that's real talk. You are wrong. Just when you think you got it, you are wrong. And it's like, what are we going to do? Now, how does raising, what we need to do is get raises and wages raised for American families. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. I had to find my sheet here, because I have my notes, because y'all know I do my research and my due diligence. I'm not going to come in and just get you all worked up without facts. But what would be the real impact of raising wages for Americans? Because right now, in this current environment, we got people that work at Walmart, but they're on food stamps. Walmart pays them just enough money where they're not so poor and destitute, they can't work, but you still poor enough that you need the system to help feed your family. And then on top of that, the government gives tax breaks to Walmart for building Walmarts and for doing all these things, but yet they're paying pennies to their employees. And their excuse in the past was, that's how we keep prices low. Bull cockiness. They're full of it. They're full of it. That ain't how they keep prices low. They keep prices low by keeping wages low, barely offering benefits. That's how they keep prices low. And you know why Americans chase such low prices? Because their wages are low. If they raise the federal minimum wage and all of our wages, it wouldn't need to be a situation like that. We wouldn't even need to be in that circumstance. But we're in that circumstance because they don't want to raise the wages. That's why. When people make enough money to live on, they don't need food stamps, they don't need housing assistance or Medicaid or any of those things as much. When you're able to take care of yourself and make enough money, you can stand on your own 2 feet, you don't need as much help when you're making good working class money. But when you're barely making enough to survive, you're going to need help. It's no way around it. You're going to need help. You're going to need help. For sure. They can't stand, when people can stand on their own, they don't need taxpayer money. But when they can't stand on their own because the system is crushing them and keeping them poor, right? Crushing them and keeping them poor, what they supposed to do? If Walmart keeps you on part-time status and don't give you enough hours so you can go full-time so they can offer you health care, guess what? You got to go to the open market. You got to go to the exchange. You got to go to the healthcare exchange. You got to go to, what is it, healthcare.gov? You got to go there and get your own insurance. Now, this is the interesting part. The government subsidizes for low wage earners. They subsidize your healthcare, even through healthcare.gov, right? But all Walmart has to do is stop being cheap, put that person on full-time status so they can get benefits, and then they wouldn't need to use taxpayer money. But that's not what Walmart wants. Walmart wants them on the taxpayer dollar because Walmart don't want to pay. But Walmart also wants to use our tax dollars for tax breaks to conduct their business. See? That's how it all is for all of them. That's how it all is for all of them. Higher wages reduce reliance on public programs, and they do give dignity to people. People think that people who are poor don't want to work, don't want to earn money. That is a lie. That is a misconception. They want to earn money too. They want to pay their own way. They want to have their own house, their own transportation, their own ability to take care of their kids. They don't want to depend on the system. Do you know how poor you have to be for the system to give you anything? You got to be in a real bad way to get anything from the system. So if you're in a bad enough way that the system will help you, why can't we set up the system so it doesn't even have to be that way? You know why? Because rich people like watching poverty. It's entertaining to them. And they make money off of poverty. Second chance credit. Predatory loans. Those are rich people. That's not regular working class people doing predatory loans. We ain't got the money to be giving out to somebody for a predatory loan. That's rich people. They'll take their good, clean money and go do predatory loans on it. And then turn to the government to give them a write-off for doing loans that they knew weren't smart to do anyway. If we tried to raise wages to make them be real living wages that kept up with productivity and inflation. Higher wages mean people could spend more money. You guys see what's going on in the economy right now. And Trump's attempt to say, hey, I'm doing that on purpose. No, he's not, because doing that on purpose, people ain't gonna spend no money. When people have money, they spend money. And not just rich people. It's not enough rich people to really have enough of the impact on the economy the way they want. It's us, regular Jane Does, regular John Does that are going out and spending money. We're the ones that are keeping rich people rich. It's not rich people, not in that way. Not in that way. You have hundreds of millions of us all around the United States trying to take care of our respective families and figure out how to do things. But if we don't have this disposable money, that disposable income, like they say, if we can't get any of that money, well, guess what? I'm going to be very calculated on how I spend. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to spend much. I'm not going to spend much because I don't have the money to spend. It's a simple math game. That's why when I see the Commerce Secretary and the Treasury Secretary talk a lot of stuff about, oh, Social Security checks ain't that really big a deal. If they come up missing, people will be fine because the only people upset will be fraudsters, this, that, and the other. You got us confused, sir. You're making higher wages. All these other people on these programs are not. Because if they were, they wouldn't be on those programs. You notice rich people never talk about Social Security. You know why they don't? Because they don't plan to depend on that. Not at all. They have investments. They have other assets and other things they put in place to take care of them in their old age. They don't care about that. You know who cares about Social Security? Us. So stop letting rich people tear it up or tell you that it has no value. Higher wages mean something. They will have an impact on our lives. Like I said, higher wages mean people spend more money. That boosts local businesses and create jobs. You want to see when we start having job losses, it's because the money getting tight. The money getting tight. If you want to have something of value, you can't keep the money tight like that. Raising wages, you're going to have a better health and family. Because the more income is less stress. And what do I say? Stress will kill you. Stress will kill you. But if you made better money, you could have less stress in your life, more time to spend with your family, better food. What do we talk about? Access to health care, child care. The most important thing, you get to spend more time with your family. Right now, you're working all the time. Everything's about working. And at the end of all of that, what do you have to show for all that work? And what are the rich people going to give you after you give them 20, 30 years? An ink pen, coffee cup, jacket, and it won't even be leather? What are we signing up for, y'all? It doesn't make any sense. Why do we say we can't afford to pay more, but never ask what it costs families to stay poor? Poverty is expensive. It isn't cheap. So how come we keep saying we can't raise salaries? We can't raise wages? But what does it cost poor people to be poor? Because poverty is expensive. Poverty is expensive. So we got to be thinking about it in that way. We're asking for people to accept being poor when we won't even be honest about why we won't raise the federal minimum wage. It's because it keeps more money in the pocket of businesses. They don't want to pay those types of wages. They don't want to pay those types of wages, but that is what we deserve. The right wages, wages that should be running consecutively with inflation and productivity. And we're not getting that. We're not getting that. Now, I know I done got you worked up about these wages, but you know all ain't lost. There is something we can do. We're not stuck in this. I have to keep reminding you all that because this is a helplessness that sets over the people. But we're not helpless over this shit, contrary to what y'all think. We're not. We're not. At all. We're not helpless over this. It's something that we can do. We got to raise the federal minimum wage. That means you got to get the right people in there that's going to advocate and push for that. Stop voting for people that don't care to give us a raise. They didn't even raise federal minimum wage, but Congress has raised their wages so many times. They vote to not raise your wages, but vote to raise their own. Make that make sense. It doesn't make any sense, y'all. It makes no sense. None. Like I said, you got to support the politicians and the people who are going to advocate for working folk. If somebody's worth $50 million and they're running for school board chair, I have to ask why. Why? Your kids don't even go to public school. So why the hell you care about it? Pay attention. They care because they want to bust it up. That's why they care about it. That's why they care about it. If you want more money in your pocket and for your family, stop letting them bust up your life like that. Take your libraries, take your schools, take your jobs. Why? All for so rich people can have what they want? They still put their clothes on and their pants on the same way you do, one leg at a time. Y'all got to be mindful with your money. A lot of you talk a lot of stuff about standing for things, but you never stand long enough when your wallet is in your hand for it. When your wallet's in your hand, you forget about all the stuff you stand for. And you go, I just got to have it. Nobody else has it. And see, is what I say before. Nobody's willing to pay more for something than they need to. I ain't that type of damn patriot. And most Americans aren't. So when it comes down to your wallet, if you're going to shop at places that don't pay living wages, you're a part of the problem. And you're not a part of the solution. You are a part of the problem. You've got to shop at places that pay fair wages. You can't be mad at Walmart, right? Calling themselves trying to give rock bottom prices and not paying their employees fair wages, but you shopping there. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You choose to shop there. You know what that organization is about. Make up your mind and make a difference and have a principle and stand on that principle. And the last thing you can do about it is talk about the issue. Talk with people. Talk with people. So many of us are caught up in it. We don't even talk about it no more. We just accept it as this is what it is, and I gotta accept it. You really don't have to accept it, and we really can change it. You change it with your government, and if it means changing the people in that government to get that change, that's what you do. But you don't throw your hands up and just go, "Oh, it doesn't matter." Well, then you're gonna stay broke like that because it does matter. It absolutely positively matters. Because this isn't just a political issue. And I know a lot of people try to make it as that. This is about survival. This is about your life, a quality of life. Don't you deserve to have a quality of life that's full and means something and isn't just reduced to going to work, come home, going to work, come home, and keep rinsing and repeating it every week? That's not a quality of life. That's the American dream that folks have been selling. It's a dream. You need to wake your ass up. Because while you're asleep, your pockets are being picked by rich people. By rich people, it's about dignity, fairness, and a future where hard work pays off. Because they used to say, hard work pays off. No, it doesn't, because you can work as hard as you want to in America and you're still going to be poor. So it's almost turned into what kind of hard work pays off. Because all the hard work that I do or that you do doesn't pay. Some of it pays pennies, some of it don't pay at all. There has to be a change in tide. Because for so long, the people that are in charge aren't changing it. We aren't changing it. We are not changing it. This is how you create community, y'all. You create community with great jobs because then people have money to create these communities and sustain them. But when you ain't doing that, well, what kind of community do you think you're going to get? And then by proxy, what kind of country do you think you're going to get? We all have forgotten that. We all have a stake and responsibility in this. Let's act like it. Let's act like it. Act like it. $10 ain't no money an hour. $15 ain't no money an hour. And if rich people don't want to pay that type of money, maybe they should work hard to drop the prices on everything. Drop the prices on everything. So that we don't have to worry about paying that. If you did that, we'd be just fine. But that ain't what y'all doing. That ain't what y'all doing. We need to end those corporate loopholes. See, that's a big part of it. That's how these corporations get over so bad. They got a lot of loopholes that the government gives them. They get rewarded while we get punished. They get to hoard their profits. Government says, hey, the more money you make and the more you keep, the more tax breaks we'll give you, and the better it is for you. We'll just tax the hell out of your workers. Enough's enough, y'all. We got to stay on these people. No amount of budgeting is going to change the fact that you ain't got enough money coming in. You can budget all day and night. It won't change nothing. It won't change nothing. If they want Americans to feel like they got money to play with, then you got to pay Americans fair wages. You got to pay us wages that match according with inflation and productivity. Because inflation ain't enough. We've talked about that earlier. Inflation ain't enough. Keeping it up with inflation. That's what we have to do. That's what you got to vote with your wallet and your ballot, y'all. Y'all got to be consistent. You can't pop on, oh, I'm boycotting this store and you don't vote. Like, pick a struggle. You doing two things wrong. Pick a struggle. You're picking two things wrong. Make up your mind. We got to get to a point of doing that. America is about all of us. And so when we think in our minds about me, I, all you're doing is chipping away at the fabric of America and making us weaker. You ain't getting nowhere with that at all. But understand, our wages haven't kept up with the reality of the world around us because rich and powerful people don't want it to. You need to be having these conversations with your friends, with your family members, because when it's exposed, that's when everybody goes, right, I hadn't thought about it like that. We got to change that. Absolutely, we do. I hope in this episode, I tapped into something and made you go, well, I didn't even realize it's been that long. Yeah, wages have been pretty stagnant since the late 1970s. Yeah, a little bit of movement in the 90s with the tech sectors, but nothing major. Nothing major. And they ain't moved the federal minimum wage at all. After they raised it. What is it? What did I say, in 2000 something? Yeah, after they raised it. They ain't touched it again. Why? Because they don't want to. I think 2008, because they don't want to. They want people to be poor, destitute, and struggling. That is not a way of living. And you don't have to live that way, no matter what these people say. But if this episode got you thinking, share this episode with somebody. Share it with someone. Because I'm sure they thought about it too. Like, dang, how come my money ain't stretching as far? Because rich people don't want it to. They want you to get 2, 3, 4 jobs. The more of your time they can get, the better they feel. The better they feel. Have a conversation with the people you know. See what you guys can do together as a group, as a community. Imagine what it would be like if you made $20 an hour versus 15. $41,000 a year could change a life for a lot of people in America if they were given that opportunity. So we got to give them the opportunity. If we want a stronger America, we got to start by valuing workers and valuing people and play fair. You can't keep telling people work hard, but they never see any progress. It's bullshit. They're going to walk away from that and go, I'm not doing this anymore because I'm not getting anywhere. So we got to do something to help Americans get to where they want to be because we ain't been doing a great job. We got to stop normalizing the struggle, y'all, because it ain't normal to struggle like that. It ain't normal to just be caught up in survival. Okay, if we could just make it this week, if we could just make it next week. No, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. So I thank you guys so much. I'm going to put some polls and fillers out there for people to, give some feedback about what they thought about this conversation. But you deserve to make more money. Contrary to popular belief of what the rich people tell you, I'm telling you to your face, you should be making more money. And the only people standing in the way of you making more money is government and rich people. That's it. We all deserve more as Americans. I'm also going to put the infographic that I mentioned up into the group Patreon, into the Patreon for members, so you guys can read that, to have those points as well. So when you discuss with somebody, you have your handy dandy little sheet you can use. All the facts that I covered today are on that sheet. Thank you so much for joining, you guys. And I'm going to end this show like I do all shows. Don't let nobody live rent free in your head. Don't feed the trolls, and you can accomplish anything you put your mind to as long as you are consistent. Thank you guys so much. And until next episode, peace.